A fresh royal controversy is now putting Prince Harry's relationship with his mother's family, the Spencers, back under intense scrutiny. For years, the global conversation surrounding the Duke of Sussex has heavily focused on his well-documented rift with the House of Windsor. But right now, the spotlight has shifted in a completely different direction. The latest attention follows Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's recent visit to Althorp, the sprawling and historically rich Spencer family estate situated in the Northamptonshire countryside. This is not just any piece of land. It is the very place where Princess Diana grew up, and ultimately, where she was laid to rest. Naturally, this visit has triggered renewed discussion about Harry's profound connection to the Spencer side of his family, raising a fascinating question about whether that specific relationship has become increasingly important to him in the years following his dramatic departure from senior royal duties. Former royal butler Paul Burrell, someone who stood closely by Princess Diana for many years, has previously suggested a very compelling theory regarding this dynamic. He has noted that Prince Harry can often find an entirely different kind of welcome through his mother's family than he does within the rigid structures of the monarchy. According to these observations, the Spencers offer something distinct, a dynamic detached from the heavy crown protocols and the ongoing royal feuds that have dominated headlines for the past several years. And now, with the Althorp visit thrust squarely back into the international headlines, that specific claim regarding this alternative royal sanctuary is receiving renewed and intense attention. People are looking at the interactions, the quiet visits, and the deep emotional ties, and they are asking what it all means for the Duke's future. But there is a much bigger question hiding just behind the surface of these recent events. We have to ask ourselves, is Prince Harry simply visiting the beautiful place where his mother lived, made her childhood memories, and is now peacefully buried? Or is something far more profound taking place? Is the Spencer family gradually becoming the part of his complex royal heritage where he feels the most comfortable, the most understood, and the most protected? That specific question is now sitting right at the absolute center of this growing controversy, sparking debates among royal historians and the public alike. It challenges everything we thought we knew about Harry's royal identity and where his ultimate loyalties might actually lie as he continues to forge a completely independent life. To truly understand the gravity of this situation, we have to look closely at the location itself. The significance of Althorp absolutely cannot be overstated. This is not simply a grand country estate belonging to Harry's maternal relatives, nor is it just a weekend retreat. It is the very foundation of the Spencer legacy. It is the historic place where Diana spent so much of her formative childhood, roaming the grounds long before she ever knew she would become the Princess of Wales. Even more importantly, it is the sacred ground where she was buried on an island in the middle of the round oval lake after her tragic death. That profound history makes absolutely every single visit Harry makes to this estate emotionally significant, not just for him, but for everyone who continues to follow his journey. Recent reports have shown Prince Harry, Meghan, and their children visiting Diana's former home, a deeply personal pilgrimage that brings the entire Sussex family directly back into the Spencer family environment. By bringing his own children to this specific location, Harry is actively bridging the gap between his present life in California and the deeply rooted aristocratic history of his late mother. But royal commentators are sharply divided over what this physical and emotional return to Althorp actually means in the grander scheme of the royal narrative. Some observers look at this and see it purely as a natural family connection. They argue that any son would want to maintain a close relationship with his mother's relatives and visit his mother's resting place, especially when introducing his own growing family to their heritage. However, there is a very vocal counter-perspective. Others firmly believe that this repeated, deliberate focus on Diana's side of the family raises major questions about Prince Harry's evolving and changing identity. And this is exactly where the story takes a fascinating and unexpected turn. If we look at the raw facts of his life, Prince Harry was born in Windsor. He was raised entirely inside the royal household, shaped by the traditions, the expectations, and the heavy legacy of the British monarchy. For the vast majority of his life, his identity was completely synonymous with his grandmother, the Queen, his father, his brother, and the institution itself. But as the years have passed, and especially since his exit from the working monarchy, his public identity has increasingly been connected to Diana, her enduring memory, and now the broader Spencer family. The fundamental question being asked today by royal experts around the world is whether Prince Harry is simply preserving his mother's incredible legacy for the next generation, or if he is gradually and intentionally redefining himself entirely through it. But as we consider whether he is redefining himself through his mother's legacy, there is another side to this story that must be acknowledged. Royal biographer Angela Levin has pushed back strongly against the idealized narrative that the Spencer family should automatically be portrayed as Harry's completely safe and unconditional refuge. The truth is, the history between Princess Diana and her brother, Charles Spencer, was undeniably complicated, and Diana's relationship with the broader Spencer family was not always straightforward or easy. Over the years, claims surrounding Charles Spencer and his sister during some of her most difficult and vulnerable periods have been repeatedly used by commentators to challenge the widely held idea that the Spencer family was always a perfect sanctuary for her when the royal walls closed in. While those specific claims should certainly be treated as commentary rather than established historical fame, in fact, the larger point remains highly relevant today. Harry's maternal family, just like any family, it has its own deeply complicated history. And that actually makes the current situation much more interesting to analyze, because Prince Harry may may be reconnecting so intensely with the Spencers, not because everything about that family is flawless or completely harmonious, but simply because the connection gives him something emotionally different from the highly regimented institution he was born into. For Harry, the Spencer name is utterly inseparable from Diana. Regardless of any past family friction, Diana remains one of the most powerful influences on exactly how Harry presents his own identity to the world right now, seeking comfort in the bloodline that connects him directly to her memory. While Harry's relationship with the Spencer side of the family is attracting all of this fresh attention, his brother, Prince William, is following a very different path entirely. The Prince of Wales has remained firmly, unshakably connected to the Windsor institution. And today, as he navigates his ever-increasing responsibilities as heir to the throne, the biggest priority for William is not simply his fractured relationship with his brother. His absolute priority is the future of his three children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. This brings an entirely new and highly sensitive dynamic to the royal rift. Harry has previously spoken quite publicly about the immense pressure of growing up as the so-called spare, openly expressing his deep concerns that one of William's own children could eventually experience a similarly painful situation in the shadow of the crown. But from William's perspective as a father and a future king, those comments can be viewed very differently, often seen as an unwelcome intrusion into his own parenting. George, Charlotte, and Louis are not just children. They are now a fundamental part of the future of the British monarchy. William has the incredibly difficult task of preparing them for a life of intense public service and scrutiny, while simultaneously trying to protect their childhood, their innocence, and their privacy. That stark reality makes the continuing Harry and William dispute far more complicated than a simple sibling rivalry. Because this disagreement is no longer only about what happened in the past between two brothers, it is also fundamentally about how much access Prince Harry should have to the next generation of the royal family. And that is exactly where the trust issue becomes completely impossible to ignore. The latest Spencer controversy and Harry's shifting allegiances cannot be separated from the much bigger breakdown in trust between Harry and the Windsor family. Over the past several years, the royal landscape has been rocked by the Oprah Winfrey interview, the 6-part Netflix documentary series, and Harry's explosive memoir, Spare. Each of these major media events has repeatedly placed incredibly private royal family disputes directly into the glaring public spotlight, commodifying intimate conversations for a global audience. While Spare undeniably became a huge, record-breaking commercial success, its publication also severely intensified questions about whether the relationship between Harry and his family could ever possibly return to what it was before. It is crucial to remember that Harry himself acknowledged right before the book's publication that there were actually additional stories he could have included. He stated that he deliberately left certain details out because sharing them could have made any future reconciliation with his father and brother even more difficult, if not entirely impossible. That specific detail is incredibly significant because it actively demonstrates that Harry fully understood exactly how damaging further disclosures could potentially be to his family. Today, however, the central issue is no longer simply what Harry has already said. The much bigger, more pressing question is whether William believes that private information can actually remain private if Harry is ever brought back into the inner family circle. That single, lingering fear of private moments becoming public chapters may largely explain why the two brothers remain so incredibly distant, even when other family relationships appear to be showing faint signs of movement. Recent reporting has suggested that King Charles has managed to maintain a private, albeit complicated, relationship with Harry and his grandchildren, keeping a quiet line of communication is open. Meanwhile, William is reportedly much more cautious, keeping the gates to his own family firmly closed, prioritizing the absolute protection of the monarchy and his children above the possibility of a brotherly reconciliation. While Harry's family relationships remain under intense scrutiny, Meghan Markle is continuing to build her own public and commercial identity. Her lifestyle brand, as ever, has continued expanding in 2026. The brand originally launched with heavy Netflix involvement, but Netflix later stepped away as an active investor, leaving Meghan to continue developing the business completely independently. That distinct development adds another incredibly important dimension to the overarching Harry and Meghan story. We have to remember that the couple stepped away from senior royal duties in 2020 in pursuit of greater personal and financial independence. Yet their royal background remains one of the absolute biggest reasons the public continues to follow their lives. And that creates a glaring contradiction. They want independence from the institution, but the royal connection continues to generate enormous attention for their personal projects, public appearances, and commercial activities. Critics have heavily accused Meghan of continuing to benefit from the royal connection, while her supporters passionately argue that she is simply building a modern business outside the monarchy. That commercial debate is now an inescapable part of the larger Harry versus Windsor story, serving as a constant backdrop to every move they make. The latest Althorp development has also created an entirely new wave of commentary specifically around Meghan. Photos connected to the family visit have been discussed heavily by royal commentators, with some harshly criticizing the decision to publicly share moments connected to Diana's childhood home and her private burial place. Other observers, however, see absolutely nothing unusual about a family simply visiting the home of a deceased relative and sharing that joy. But the reaction itself is now part of the story. Because whenever Harry and Meghan appear in any location connected to Diana, the public and the media immediately begin asking what underlying message they are trying to send. Is it simply a private family memory? Is it purely about honoring Diana? Or does the continued deliberate emphasis on Diana help maintain the Sussexes' crucial connection to one of the most powerful stories in modern royal history? There is no single proven answer to that question, but the resulting controversy demonstrates one thing very clearly. Diana's legacy remains an extremely powerful, driving part of the Sussex story more than 2 decades after her tragic death, and every single new appearance at Althorp brings that monumental legacy right back into the center of the royal conversation. And now, these latest developments leave the royal family, and all of us watching, with a question that is much bigger than just one weekend visit to Althorp. The big question tonight is this: is Harry still a Windsor, or is he actively building a completely different identity? Harry remains a member of the royal family by birth. His bloodline is undeniable, but his daily public life now looks dramatically different from that of his older brother. William and Kate are continuing to diligently build their future securely inside the institution. Their recent, highly coordinated public appearances with George, Charlotte, and Louis have once again brilliantly highlighted the stability of the next generation of the monarchy. Harry, meanwhile, is living thousands of miles away in California and building a completely different kind of public identity. Yet his emotional connection to Diana remains visibly stronger than ever. And now, his connection to the Spencer family is once again under the intense global spotlight. That brings us to the biggest, most defining question of this developing story. Is Prince Harry purposely moving away from the Windsor identity, or is he simply reclaiming the part of his identity that was always deeply connected to his mother? Because technically, Harry does not have to choose between being a Windsor and being Diana's son. But the specific way he publicly emphasizes those two very different identities may tell us something profound about where he truly feels he belongs today. And that is exactly why the Althorp visit matters so much. It is not simply a passing story about a wealthy family estate. It is about a prince who was born into one of the most famous, rigid families in the world, lost his mother at an incredibly young age, stepped away from his royal duties, and now appears increasingly connected to the aristocratic family she came from. For William, Diana's legacy appears to be something he carries forward dutifully within the strict framework of the monarchy. For Harry, Diana's legacy may be something far more personal, a guiding light for his independence. And as the latest reactions continue to spread and dominate the news cycle, one massive question remains hanging heavily over the royal family. Has Harry really walked away from Windsor forever, or is he simply trying to find his true place within the part of the family that still feels most connected to Diana? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you believe Harry is leaving his Windsor roots behind for good, or just finding much needed comfort in the Spencer family? Drop your thoughts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update on the royal family, and I will see you in the next video.